In my life, there's only been one thing constant, and that is change. I was born in the Soviet Union, which, as we know, fell apart when I was 5 years old in 1991. The following year, another set of changes happened. My parents divorced, and we moved from one side of the country to another. That same year, I started school, but instead of starting it in a language that I knew, which was Russian, I was sent to a school in Kazakh, my native language, a language that at that point was not being practiced. It was suppressed under the Soviet Union. But none of these changes prepared me for what happened when I was 13. When I was 13 years old, my parents decided to move from Kazakhstan all the way to the United States, and to be more precise, to Houston, Texas. Now, I don't know if any of you have been there to Houston, Texas, but it's a very hot and humid place. It's a sprawling city with a big downtown area full of skyscrapers. And in my mind, in a 13-year-old mind, I thought that I would end up living there. Instead, we went to live in the suburbs, 95% of Houston. And I don't know if you know this, but in the suburbs of Houston, there are no sidewalks. Nobody walks on the road. Nobody walks on the street. The issue was that my mom was not driving. She didn't have a driver license, and we didn't have a car. So every day we had to go to the supermarket, walking on the side of the road while the cars were passing us by and honking and laughing at us. So this was my introduction to Houston. The second big shock came when I went to school. The school that I was used to had about 200, 300 people. This school was huge, 4,000 students. I remember walking into the cafeteria, a huge atrium full of people, around 1,000 students. And there you felt like a number. You felt like an unknown, anonymous number. And not only that, in my lessons, I was finding different students. Every class, the group of people that I was around were changing. And a lot of them were actually much older than me. They were 18, 19-year-old children. You can't even call them children. They were adults about to go off to a university. And I was a kid, and I didn't know the language, and I didn't know how to fit in. I didn't fit in. I walked strangely, I talked strangely, I dressed strangely. For a 13-year-old, as you can imagine, this is quite traumatic. A 13-year-old is usually trying to figure out their identity. They're searching, they're questioning things. I was doing that, and on top of that, I was trying to learn the language, and I was trying to fit in, and I was trying to survive. Now, oftentimes I've looked back and I thought to myself, and I asked myself, how did that experience affect me? At the beginning, I thought that it affected me quite negatively. I thought that it had an impact on my self-confidence. It made me close up. But later on in life, I realized that that was the experience that really forms me and forms my character. It was that experience of facing my fear every single day, of going to the school on a daily basis and confronting the humility, the public shame, all those things that are very difficult for any individual to live through, but at that young age, especially so, it brought out a strength in me. It made me realize that I can do it and I can overcome these obstacles. And it made me also realize that I have a strength in me to start over and succeed. And in fact, I learned the language, I learned English in 2 or 3 months, I made friends. Everything went on well. In my adult life, it was quite similar. I had a lot of changes because I chose to do so. I pursued work in different areas, consulting, nonprofit, private equity, e-commerce. And I also didn't settle down in one spot. I worked in New York, London, Singapore, in a lot of different places, including Accra, Ghana. But it was the curiosity that drove me forward. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I wanted to continue to explore and see things. And some of the experiments went well, and some not so well. And one of those was a job that I took after the business school. I applied for a job that I didn't really know much about, but it was prestigious. All the students were applying for it. It was probably the most prestigious sector you can find and the best, most well-paid job. I applied, and 15 interviews later, I got it. I started the job with a little bit of uneasiness and doubts inside because I didn't really know if it would fit me. And my gut feeling was right. It did not fit me. I worked really hard, but every day felt a bit like a struggle. There were obstacles. I was living somebody else's dream and not mine. And 1 year later, I decided to quit. And for me, that was a very difficult decision because it was the first time when I realized that I cannot change and adapt to anything. There are some things that are not going to fit me. But I had the courage to quit the merry-go-round, to quit this brilliant path that I was on and follow my heart. And it was exactly this, following my heart, that brought me on the journey of entrepreneurship. In 2017, a colleague and a friend of mine approached me and we decided to start a company together. I was working in a big multinational. I had a great job. I was leading a team of 30 people, managing a P&L, and I decided to leave all of that to go and start this company. There were 2 of us, a PowerPoint deck, and we went out into the world. But I pursued what I wanted to do. I followed my heart. I had a hunch that I wanted to start something from scratch and really grow it and build it from the very beginning. And I had a hunch that this job somehow would fit me, the kind of person I am. As an entrepreneur, I have a lot of variability in what I do. I wake up in the morning thinking about accounting, then I move on to finance, then it's HR, then it's a client issue about pricing. I get to see it all. And this gamut and this wideness of what I do is really what keeps me going and makes me happy. So looking back at the last 6 years, I can only be proud of that decision that I made back in 2017 because the last 6 years have been full of learning and growth. But the thing that makes me most proud is to see the people that I've hired, that I've invested into, grow, acquire new skills, and achieve important milestones. Now, I'm leading this group of people now through a change, an important change. Last year, we were acquired by a much larger company. It's roughly 10 times bigger than my company. And to lead people through that is not an easy task because, of course, there's a lot of work to do. You have to centralize processes, you have to change processes, you have to make people change the way they think, and you have to lead them on this journey and make sure and hope that they follow you. And there are some things that I'm learning on the way through this process. And I wanted to share those today. First, I think it's really important to connect the change to the why, to the vision of the company, and to help people understand why they are on this path and how being on this path is going to get us closer to what we were meant to do. The second thing that I think is really important is to acknowledge that there will be a lot of hard work for an uncertain future outcome, but that things will get better. We are on this path together. That's the other message that I think is really important to pass. And we will not have all the answers in front of us. And there will be many moments when I will not be able to respond in the best way, and I will make mistakes along the way, but we are in this together, and together we will make it through. In my life, change has been important. And it's been the one thing, the one constant that brought me all along. And I believe change takes practice. I believe that the more we practice it, the more we are open to it, the more we can take out of it. The more we can take out of this experience, which is learning and enjoyment. And you never know where it can bring you. Following your heart and embracing change can open up realities that you could not even imagine. I will tell you a story. 10 years ago, my then boyfriend, we were seeing each other for about a year, living in different cities, but meeting each other every weekend in different parts of Europe. One day he told me, "I think you should move to Italy." And I looked at him like he was crazy. I think anybody else at that point would have said, okay, it's enough. It's finished here. But I actually said, you know what? Let me apply to a couple of jobs and let me see what happens. 3 days later, I got a call from a recruiter. And the rest is history. And that boyfriend is my husband today, and we have 3 beautiful daughters together. And I can say quite easily that I really love living in this country. So be open to change. Change is powerful. Change is good. And it can take you on a path that is beautiful and can open up things that you could not even imagine. Embark on it. Buon viaggio.